The big story of the day, though, is the Northern Territory administration, the Northern Territory government, caving into pressure and reinstating alcohol bans in Central Australia. Now, that's going to prevent the sale of alcohol to some communities in town camps. There'll be some still that had those bans in place, but some of them had taken them away. But take a look at what unfolded today with the Northern Territory leader when she made this announcement.
For far too long, decisions about Alice Springs and in fact the Northern Territory have been made in Canberra with little to no consultation with the people that these decisions impact upon. And today this changes. The Northern Territory government will bring forward legislation to strengthen alcohol restrictions. I want to be clear, this is not Stronger Futures. This is NT legislation that allows a clear process. The new legislation will follow local decision-making processes where community alcohol plans will be developed. Communities that want to make changes will go to a vote, with 60% of the population needing to agree and the Director of Licensing signing off on these plans.
You get a sense that Natasha Giles was dragged kicking and screaming to make that decision, and $250 million is the sweetener. Indigenous leader Warren Mundine joins us. Look, it's welcome news, I guess, Warren, but again, a big pot of government money is required to fix what has been a problem that we've been trying to fix forever. What do you make of it?
Look, I just find it, well, first of all, I've got to say, great, at least they're bringing it back. But, they shouldn't have taken it away in the first place. We should have been going on to other measures as well. Alcohol is a problem in the Northern Territories, but it's a problem across Australia. And it's the end result of social breakdown and a huge number of crime issues. And this is what they should be focusing on. They shouldn't have never taken the alcohol bans off. They should have then went on to how do we deal with the social issues that is the end result of the violence, the crime, and the property damage that is happening in Alice Springs and across Australia. So we've got to take a grown-up, mature approach to this and actually deal with the real issues.
So, Warren, when you ban something, people find a way around it, obviously. Everybody does. You take something away and that people want, and particularly if you're addicted to alcohol and you're an alcoholic, you're going to find a way to get it. We've heard horrendous stories in the past of, bottles of Bundy rum being sold for $700. I mean, just beggars belief. But in your experience, are these bans working or do people find a way around it?
It's a bit of both. The issue is the bans are great for a beginning. And to help stop getting around these bans is you do need stronger policing. And therefore, you have to then have management of the alcohol come back into those communities. And that resolves a lot of the crime issues in that. When I was on Palm Island, they got rid of the grog. And then what they did was bring back alcohol. So you had low alcohol beer. You only could have 2 cans. You had to sign off on it. And that was it. And then over a period of time, they had full alcohol strength, and then you could have several cans. And there's still the ban on spirits and wine and that. And then eventually over a few years, I was able to bring that back into play. But it has to be managed. People have, alcohol is not a human right. It is policed very heavily around the world, and we need to keep those in place. But that is not the end of the social issues that are happening in these communities. You need to look at the sexual abuse. You need to look at the domestic violence. You need to look at the long-term unemployment, kids not going to school and being out late at night, and look at the whole wide range of no investments into these communities, no businesses, and no jobs. And so we've got to start dealing with those real issues before we start lifting alcohol bans in management areas. We've got to start investing in these communities, getting businesses, getting people learning to have parental, rights and that. So how do they learn to be parents? And because you're getting young girls and that who are getting pregnant, and then they're on alcohol they petrol sniff and everything like that. And so it's important that we do have, we do deal with those issues. Like we had recently the death of that young man in Yuendamu, where he was shot by police in self-defence. That boy from conception didn't have a good life. He was always going to end up with a bad ending, and it was because his mother was young. She was an alcoholic. She used to petrol sniff, and he was born with fetal alcohol problems, and that was, it was just a disaster. And so we've got to confront those issues and get some sort of social community respect and that back into these communities.
But it must break the heart of an Indigenous man like you. I wrote at the weekend about how the original intervention that was prosecuted by the Howard government, Mal Brough was involved, and they did things like tie school attendance to welfare payments. I mean, they brought in the card where you couldn't buy grog on the card, and people screamed about that. They had all of the computers, the laptops that were government-issued laptops. They audited them to see that there was no pornography on them. But slowly, year after year after year, the activists got all that wound back, wound down to a point where it basically didn't exist anymore. And here we go again, back in this vicious cycle, Warren. When's it ever going to end?
Well, yeah, that is correct. And look, I've got to say, we're heading in the right direction in this area. We had volunteers, people from the local community who used to go to the school, check what kid was in that school, and then go to the parents' home and say, have you got any problems at home? Is there any issues? How do we get your kid to school to get educated? And we had nothing but, because this is when I was chair of the Prime Minister's Indigenous Advisory Council with Turnbull and Abbott, and getting information from state and territory government was just totally political. It had nothing to do with actually fixing people's lives, making those kids have a safe life and growing up into good adulthood, getting educated, preschool educated, the girls not getting pregnant at young ages and not on alcohol and drugs and all that type of stuff. Ideology come into it, and this is the result of it. You've got to be tough on crime. You've got to be tough on getting kids to school, and you've got to be tough to get investments in businesses, and you've got to change laws so people can own their own home. They can get a job and save money and stuff like that, and make it a normal community where you don't have people beating each other up, and you don't have people kicking over bins and stealing bikes and smashing windows and etc. You've got to get things back to normality. But, what I see from politicians, and I've seen it at the federal level and the state level, territory level, they just don't have the long-term focus for that to happen. And it's just, and you see the results, the dreadful results of the sex, drugs and alcohol that happens.